Hello sailors and welcome back to the land of Eternum. Today we're going to be taking the opportunity to geek out a little bit over the fact that very recently, we might have just had official confirmation that there were in fact past civilizations that visited Eternum besides the Roman Empire. I've been gathering and researching all the information I could for this for the past few days, but what really inspired me to make this video is a tweet that someone had mentioned me in, where they speculated that the broken down ship that Amazon Game Studios teased in a recent picture was actually that of a Viking longship. And I do have to personally thank the person because yes, Paul, I believe you are absolutely right. And this is very good news for all of us, both lore-wise and future content-wise. First, I'd like to reiterate that like I've said before, it would be very interesting to see past civilizations rise up in the world of Eternum besides the Romans. We know that the game takes place in an alternate version of the 17th century, and even though my history is very rusty in a lot of parts, I know that there are a lot of civilizations that rose and fell before that time period. And to get specific, every single one of my, and I'm sure a lot of other people's favorite civilizations have come before this time period. The reason this could mean a good thing for the game is when you start talking about past civilizations and how they can be implemented, we can start getting into topics like new armor, new weapon designs, whether they're cosmetic based or earnable in some way. On top of that, we have certain points of interest or entire territories and settlements that could be made, with designs that mirror past civilizations. And most importantly, we get content related to them as well. We could see things like gladiator arenas in Roman design, a naval combat/travel system that gets built on the backbone of the Viking or other civilizations, and there's even more ways they could build onto that. For just a second though, I'd like to draw your attention to the New World trailer from the Game Awards. I know you've probably seen it a million times by now, but one thing we haven't done is dive into what putting the Romans, and more specifically these types of Romans, can symbolize. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now for the ancient Roman Empire, history tells us that it was founded in 27 BC by the main man Augustus Caesar himself. Over time, the Roman Empire was split into two, and this also gets depicted in several ways, including movies and gaming. Most notably, you've probably seen mention or experienced a showcase of this in the Total War series. Now this Roman centurion and his crew that get shown in the trailer, he looks to me like he's wearing ancient Roman Empire armor, or at the very least Western Roman Empire. What this means is that when they first got to Eternum, it was far back before a lot of these civilizations even existed. And after these men get corrupted, we see an unexplained time skip and we have no idea how much time passes in between. Only that the next men to arrive seem to be wearing armor from what appears to be the colonial period. Now the colonial period was said to have started in the early 1600s, and since this world of Eternum takes place in the 17th century, it sounds safe to say that we're still within that time period. The Romans I mentioned before came about back in 27 BC. And despite the Western Roman Empire being the first to fall in around 476 AD, the Eastern Empire was said to not have lived past the 14th century, and all within that time frame, a great deal of other civilizations were popping up all across the world, which also brings us to our second topic, the Vikings. Now for this, we're going to take a look all the way back at the screenshot that Amazon released earlier. When I first saw Paul's message and looked at the broken ship, I couldn't help but think to myself, yeah, that does look like a Viking ship way more than a Roman. The Romans used ships like the triremes from what I remember, and they didn't look anything like that. And also, yeah, the shields don't appear to resemble that of a Roman shield at all, much more similar to that of a Viking-based one. But then it actually hit me, it's because of the ship's head. Anytime I've seen Vikings depicted in gaming or movies or TV shows, a lot of the time the way I could tell a Viking ship from a regular is because of the ship's head. So I had to do some research as soon as I saw this, and lo and behold, I found it immediately. Vikings had usually embellished these boats with decorative headpieces. These heads, those of a dragon and snake, were very popular, and they were designed to provoke fear in the spirits of whichever land the Vikings were raiding. And then I saw pictures of the Viking head as well, and the part that stuck out to me the most was the ears on top of it, and the shape of its mouth in combination. My friends, I believe that we're looking at the first proof that Vikings have visited these lands. And not just the dragon head, but the round shields, the placement of the oars on the side, the ethereal footsteps of those who came before us. This absolutely has to mean something. But then the question opens up to the next part. So if you've got Vikings and you've got Romans, who else could have visited the lands of Eternum at one point in time? If you've got Rome, that must mean you have Carthage. And if you've got Carthage, that means Hannibal must have been an awesome guy in this universe too. And then on the other side of that, if you've got Vikings, where's my Anglo-Saxons? The Middle Ages were from 476 AD to around the 14th century, and the Vikings weren't the only ones who owned ships or could get access to them. What I believe Amazon may be doing right now, or at least what I hope they're doing, is planning. A lot of times games in this industry, specifically the MMORPG genre, might end up having a struggle when it comes to blueprinting the game's future, especially if you're working from a fantasy setting where every object, location, and the stories being built within them are all from the ground up. But one of the smartest things that you could do, and I don't know why more games in the genre haven't elected to do this, aside from the ones that were going to but never could, is pull from history. Amazon has a wide open canvas here, and even though there is still a good deal of worry in the community regarding the game's future, I'm sure that we can all collectively agree that if you took the 17th century and started moving backwards, I don't think anyone would have a big problem with it. Tying the lore and the design of the Vikings alone could heavily enhance the game in my opinion, whether it's religious beings that could have an alternate influence on the island like those of Thor, Odin, Frigga, and more, or just the design of their armor and weapons being added in as crafted items or loot we can obtain. I think they could certainly make it work, especially with the combat system. There's already players asking for weapons like dual-wielding daggers or axes, or one-handed axe and shield for instance, but having armor and a Viking or Anglo-Saxon theme to go along with that would make it that much sweeter. And not just them, but you've got the Templars that were founded in the 11th century. We could get armor designs of them in the future, which would be extremely awesome for a Templar fanboy like myself, or even throw in inspiration from medieval Ireland and Scotland. Don't even have to settle for just England. There's so many possibilities in the Middle Ages alone, and it is truly one of my favorite periods. And to get ridiculous for a second, why couldn't we get the stuff from the three kingdoms of China themselves? Housing decorations, areas of the map to explore, weapons and armor themed after that legendary period of time, and we could even see some samurai. And although these two might start going outside the box, meaning the current theme of the game, I think it could actually fit lore-wise and mechanics-wise, especially if there were just entire areas dedicated to them. But what about you guys? In addition to that, we've got even more civilizations that we could speak of. We've got the Mongols in the 12th century, founded by one of my favorite men of history, Genghis Khan. The Huns of the 4th century AD featuring the big man himself. Now just to touch on one last civilization that I really like to see influence the game in some way, please give us the Greeks. Like my god, we need those ancient city-states in our Eternum-filled lives. I gotta have my Spartan, Athenian, or even Macedonian armor. I've waited so long to see those helmets being utilized in an open-world MMO, and I hope New World has what it takes to make something like that happen. These civilizations and even further back ones like Egyptians have got to at least be on their mind. If we take a look at the modern MMOs and MMORPGs, whether they be mainstream or indie, I can't think of more than a few that might even come close to a third-person open-world action MMO with historical influences. And we've already seen that some people are worried that New World may not have an identity anymore. Maybe this could be a way for the game to help find its identity. The alternative historic MMO with combat like Dark Souls and beautiful graphics and lore, and mechanics that cater as much as possible to the PvE crowd and PvP, I think that's a spot that I would love to see New World get to. Maybe even something that we could classify as unique. But with that, I want to pass the question off to you. We've seen the Romans, and now we've seen what appears to be a hat tip for the Vikings. Do you guys think in the future we could potentially see civilizations either before, after, or between these two? And what about a naval system? We've seen article mention of that sort of thing being a possibility in the future. I've been thinking myself that if they did create other islands for us to explore, why not make them themed after past civilizations and give us new weapons, armor, and more that specifically come from them or others? Is that something you guys would like to see? To be honest with you all, I'm not really sure yet what could come from the New World's future, or if they actually plan to build on these short teases, but at the same time, I'm very eager to see where they take it. Thank you all very much again for taking the time to check out this video, and I hope you all have a wonderful night or day. And farewell.